Well, good morning. Welcome back for a less Kevin, more tech from UTEC IT. I'm happy after missing the last couple ones that, you guys didn't really invite me back. I just had to force my way back.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened. I mean, things were going so well, and anyway.
Yeah, we'll derail it here. So on with the show.
Your name's in the title.
Yeah, so I got to come back once in a while. But today we got a great guest, Les, and a gentleman we met down there in Ann Arbor area from a few functions. He's out in the business community, shaking hands and kissing babies and doing all the good stuff. Yeah. But Dr. Jeff, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to come out here and be a part of this podcast today. Right.
So we met you, it was an SBAM meeting, right?
Correct.
Right. So, but you are a friend within our company with Christine, and she thought your story was very unique, and she'd come to Kevin and myself. It's got to be a couple months ago, or at least that or a month ago. She wanted to get you on to get a chance to tell your story, and after meeting at the meeting and getting the high level, it is pretty unique.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's ask a little bit of a background thing. How did you get into healthcare? How did you become Dr. Jeff as opposed to Jeff?
Yeah, that's a great question.
By the way, great title. I like Dr. Jeff. It's cool.
So I went to medical school. It's just like anyone. I did undergraduate actually in Illinois, not here in Michigan, and I did athletic training as my undergraduate. So it was more of like the sports medicine background, and I always felt I had a potential to do more myself. A potential to achieve higher level of care is what I could do. And at the time, I was working as an athletic trainer. Going back, this is years ago. I was working in a physical therapy center doing workers' comp cases and rehabilitation for the most part. And it was so many layers. You had the client, of course, the patient, who was getting therapy from us. We'd have to coordinate with the surgeon, and what their wishes were and how fast to progress someone in their therapy. We also had to, deal with, it was silly things like the lawyers and the adjusters of the cases, really? Trying to get more therapy approved a lot of times. These are people with, huge, musculoskeletal orthopedic type injuries. And I just felt that there had to be a better way, even at that time, more of a direct route, right?
So it's complex. I mean, when I think of physical therapy, it doesn't seem complex because I'm looking at it from a participant.
If you go from a participant standpoint, it can still be complex. I mean, a lot of people, even with quote unquote, quote good insurance, you still got huge co-pays and deductibles you have to meet. And physical therapists, they do amazing, awesome work. But a lot of times they're asking to see you, twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, depending on the extent of the injury. And those co-pays, that can add up, right? And so, even back then, I felt, there was a more, direct path I can do, just, direct care for my patients. Applied for, got into medical school. When I was in medical school, I was part of an underserved medicine group where we went out to prisons, migrant farms, places with low income, and provided free healthcare. Right now, we were just medical students, so of course we couldn't bill for anything at that point, but we were nonetheless supervised by physicians. This is in Chicago, Chicago College of Osteopathic Medicine. Okay, and that sort of set the tone for me, along with my own experiences, because when I was in medical school, it was a requirement by by my university to have, health insurance, right? A requirement. And, at the time, I was a student making no money. My wife was a paralegal working for a law office for $10 an hour. This is, back in, early 2010. And she had health insurance for herself, but it did not extend over to me, even though we were married. And, for this reason, I would sign up with a health insurance company, typically Blue Cross, for a month, get a statement of coverage to give to my university, and then promptly cancel my insurance policy the next month, where I wouldn't have to continue the premiums. right?
So I was curious because you're obviously highly educated, right? And so you're engaging in behavior to meet the check boxes, but you're probably sitting there going, "This might not be the best idea overall."
Exactly, and what it taught me is, despite being in a university with a lot of really smart professors, other smart doctors, rotating at some of the best hospitals, in the Chicagoland area, hospitals I'm sure you've heard about, just offhand comments. I could not access the type of health care I was ideally trying to provide because of my status, right? And this continued throughout my postgraduate studies, what everyone commonly calls residencies, where when I was participating, giving care, my patients, they would ask me times, what's the cost of this? I had no clue, the cost of services that I was providing or I was referring them to. Other times, it's very common in medicine that we'd, suggest, lifestyle changes or, medication adjustments for patients, and they'd come back not any better. And we'd say, hey, what happened? And they say, oh, I just couldn't afford it, right? And I had no idea that, a pharmacy was trying to charge $100 for what should be a $5 prescription, right? And it's sort of just this, break in healthcare, right? I was acting not only as a physician for my patients, but also as a social worker a lot of times. And I think all physicians do this. So social workers do amazing work, but everyone in healthcare acts as a social worker sometimes in trying to find the best resources for their patients to utilize. And then this continued even further after I got out of my postgraduate studies. When I was employed in the hospital system, the second day of my employment, they dropped a note on my desk saying, you must see 30 patients a day over here, right? 30 patients a day in an 8-hour day with a 1-hour lunch in there, right? I mean, I'm moving very, very fast.
Sure. So you got a quota.
I got a quota, and it's hard enough talking to someone about a common cold, in the 5 to 8 minutes I'm allotted to talk with someone, let alone, I have patients with complex medical concerns like heart failure and COPD, severe depression.
Was this a unique experience, or is this across most healthcare?
This is across all healthcare, right?
Really?
And I think as a country, we're going to see more and more physicians such as myself move away from organized, hospital-based systems and, move back into private practices such as what I'm doing right now. It was a trend, I think, in the 1980s and 90s. Actually, you do the opposite, where private practices sold to. They did. Yeah, they sold to hospital-based systems and made a lot of money as they sold and incorporated their patients into there. But that came with what I call the golden handcuffs, right? Is that if you want to be employed by a hospital, you have to operate by their rules. And what I think doctors are realizing right now is that it's not the hospitals, but it's these administrators, right? It's this 90% of hospitals are all just administrators telling doctors who have years of experience, some 10 more years of experience than I do in their education, what to do. And
giving them metrics to hit, like 30 patients.
Exactly.
So I got to ask just a couple of questions because I'm not in the healthcare world. So as an observer, what I see is that it used to be 5-6 hospitals or whatever, but now they get bought up and they're becoming, huge
conglomerates. Yeah.
Right. Now, like in this state, that we're in, there's now just a handful of major healthcare systems.
Yep.
And you see a lot of the doctors' offices, they're name the healthcare company, doctor. And, their signs outside of their buildings are the healthcare system.
Yeah.
And this is the golden handcuffs you're referring to. So what I remember reading in the paper was that, do we even have newspapers anymore? Well, we'll find out. But I remember reading is that the answer to reduce cost, to trim cost out of the healthcare system, was to go to a physician and say, hey, come into our fold, and you become part of our ecosystem, and therefore your costs, are reduced, but you accept a salary and, kind of a specification of where you are and what you offer. But that it was designed to reduce cost, to cut cost out of the healthcare environment. But that's not what I hear you saying.
No, and in fact, I think everyone, including yourself and anyone who's utilized the healthcare system, can say that their costs have not gone down over the last
No.
2 to 10, 20 plus years. In fact, those costs have gone up substantially, and hospitals are fighting price transparency across the board. It's I think it's federal law that they're trying to make hospitals post their prices on the most common procedures, lab tests, imaging, surgeries that they offer, and hospitals including U of M, Beaumont, they may post it, but it's incredibly hard to find for most people. It's not like going to a restaurant where you look at their menu and say, oh, price of a chicken wrap is this, and the price of a rotisserie chicken is this.
Combo number one, please.
Exactly, right. And they make it that way purposely. That way, price comparison. If you had a knee replacement, and heaven forbid you had a $10,000 deductible, right? And one hospital's charging $50,000 for that knee replacement, but another hospital charges $8,000, right? But you don't know that information. That's a huge difference,
right?
And one could say, "Oh, I want to go to the higher price hospital because $50,000. It must be a better experience." These are, again, both board certified orthopedic surgeons here in the United States. I think you're going to have a good experience no matter where you go.
Yeah, I think most doctors, they want to do the right thing, right? But you get trained in there that there's so much paperwork, and you got to see the quotas. I know our personal doctor, same thing. He sold out to one of these big conglomerates, health systems, and he thought it'd be easier for him. He said, "Hey, it's going to simplify. I can give more time to my practice," and it was just the opposite. He said, "I got bogged down with more stuff," and he's just aborted that and jumped into his own practice again, much like what you're trying to do there.
Yeah, so back in 2018, I left, my hospital system, and I started, my clinic down in Ann Arbor. It's called Beyond Primary Care, with the just simple goal of providing affordable and accessible health care to anyone who wants it, right? And it's styled in a style of what we call direct primary care. As the name implies, we just work directly for our patients. And I always tell people, it's like concierge in a little way, but it's more just blue collar concierge, right? When I think of concierge medicine, right, maybe this is where your doctor was headed. I think of like the 1%ers out there, the people who have a ton of money, it's no object to them, and they can spend it, and it's just about access to them, right? And when I think of concierge, I think of unfortunate things as well, such as famous people such as Prince or Tom Petty or even Michael Jackson, right? And just to name a few examples, who had concierge physicians, right? And those physicians were probably paid a huge amount of money, had a tough time saying no to their patients, and their patients ultimately paid the ultimate price with their life because of sloppy and poor prescribing of medications.
So, I want to do a quick timeout. So 2018, right? So when did you start with the in the hospital where they put this sticker?
So that was in 2017.
2017. So you had spent a fair amount of time seeing something you didn't want to participate in.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so you basically got the entrepreneurial bug.
Well, I don't know if it's an entrepreneurial bug. It's terrifying, right? Opening a small business.
Yeah.
I think any small business owner will tell you, that you lose a lot of sleep over it. You're excellent at what you do, and it's. I went to school for medicine. I'm very good at diagnosing people, treating people. I wouldn't say I'm the best, but I try hard.
Yeah, you
right?
feel good about what you do.
I try to care more than the next person, and. When opening a business, right, it's terrifying. But one thing I kept going back in my mind is I said, okay, if there's electricians out there who can open their own electrical company, if there is, a
copier sales guy,
a really good chef out there who doesn't want to work for Applebee's or Chili's and says, I'm going to open my own restaurant and I'm going to do this. I said, I can do this, and it's more complicated, obviously, than hanging a shingle and an open sign and saying I'm open for business. And plus, my clinic, has like you said, a unique approach to how we provide care, and that we don't bill insurance. And so it takes a little bit of explanation, such as what I'm doing here with you guys today, and in order to sort of elaborate on that.
But Dr. Jeff, it's not so much. I don't think that you're being driven by, I want to be a business guy and I want to run my business. It's the dollars and cents. You're driven by the care, the quality of care, right? And reaching the patients and making sure that when they come in, they can spend 20 minutes, they can spend 2 hours with you. You're about getting the right care and right diagnosis with them, and not just rushing through to.
That's right. And, it's always about caring more than the next person. And, that's, I think, where, my clinic sort of makes that distinction, is that our visits are a half hour minimum, right, for all our patients. The appointments start on time. This is, again, when I work in the
don't get me started there.
And when I worked in the hospital system, this is always a frustrating point for me. And, as a physician, I could do nothing about it because, again, my schedule is so jam-packed, sometimes double or even triple booked for that same appointment time. And that, people would come in for a 10 o'clock appointment. A lot of times, if it was an older person, they had their, son or daughter with them who was taking time off of work themselves to come in for a concern. And again, I had 5 to 8 minutes. What can I do in 5 to 8 minutes? I can address maybe one concern, two if I'm lucky, right? But a lot of times I said, hey, you got to come back next week, for a follow-up, right? What does that mean for that son or daughter? They're taking more time off of work, right? Versus with our clinic, we're trying to provide them that time, that accessibility. We're going to, cover multiple concerns at at a single visit.
And that's if they even saw you at 10. Usually it's like 10. Usually it's 11:30 or something like that. Or you got to wait till after Doc comes back for lunch. Well, wait a minute, we had it 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating.
So you came up with this idea and this concept born from your personal experiences. So if you were to give us just an overarching description, and then let's dive into it a little bit. So, but how would you describe your organization and
so
what you're trying to
beyond primary
accomplish?
care, it's a direct care facility, right? So like I said, we work directly for our patients, meaning we're entirely insurance free. We're membership based.
That's big. That's different.
So for about the cost of a cell phone plan per month, or between $50 and $80 per month, people get their health care from us, and that includes office visits without copays, access to wholesale medications dispensed from our in-clinic pharmacy, as well as wholesale blood work done at the time of appointment when necessary. So we're really trying to cover about 90 to 95% of all the healthcare needs anyone would ideally need in a primary care setting in a single visit, included with that monthly membership, right? A lot of people, sometimes may scoff at the idea of I have health insurance. Why would I pay a membership, for this doctor, right? And I compare other insurances, right? I say, well, look at your car insurance. Are we using our car insurance to fill up on $5 gas, every day? I don't think so. I'd like to, but we don't.
Good point.
If we get a fender bender over here in the state of Michigan, and we have a little bit of body damage to our car, could we submit through the no fault insurances? Yeah, but a lot of times they're going to say, hey, you're on the hook for your own repairs. Okay, windshield wipers, things like that. We have to pay for these out of our own pocket. Oil changes, right? So there's a certain amount of maintenance, even though we have car insurance, that we're expected to put forth in our car, cash by ourselves. Same thing from homeowners insurance. Say, you don't like the shingles on your house, or one's falling down, right? Unless there's sort of a disaster going on with a tornado in the area, or some hail damage. A lot of times your homeowners policy say, hey, this is on you to cover, right? You can't get reimbursed for this. But in healthcare, people have been so indoctrinated, so driven to use their insurance for everything, including what should be low cost, items, that's driving up the price for healthcare and everything. So, yesterday, for example, I had a young man come to my office. He has, terrible, anxiety, some mental health concerns, and he was being charged. It was close to $27 per month for a common, anti-depression, anti-anxiety medication, right? The same medication that costs, $6.78 for a 90-day supply through our office, things like that.
Wow.
Right. And it's just the bloatedness of the healthcare system, right? Every time you try to use that, they're saying, okay, well, if you want to process through your insurance, this is your copay, right? You haven't hit your deductible. This is what it is.
Well, and I think that's just it, right? If we get back to paying cash for the small things, for the upkeep, that it will lower the cost for everybody, won't it?
And I do believe so, right? And, to that point, treating something catastrophic, like say an orthopedic type injury, your kid falling down and breaking their arm, or sometimes worse, like brain cancer, right? This is vastly different than an ankle sprain or a person with high blood pressure. Yet with health insurance, we're paying for them in the same manner, right? And this is where again, sometimes if we take a step back and say, okay, what's the cash price, for these services? They're actually much, much more affordable than if we had to use our insurance even in the first place, right? And so this is part of my goal with the clinic too, is, educate, the people out there, who don't have insurance, who do have insurance, like, hey, a lot of times there's more affordable means of obtaining health care. I was talking with a gentleman not too long ago who was saying they have another doctor who looks at their claims and tries to negotiate claims after the fact of the healthcare expenses to try to lower the cost. And to me, that's just another form of a middleman that you're paying, right? Why not just have that transparency from the beginning, right? A known cost. Why is it so hard? Imagine buying groceries. You went to the supermarket and you didn't see the price for bread. You didn't see the price for the pound of beef or the box of cereal that your kid wants or the gallon of milk, right? And when you got to register, they say, oh, it's going to be this, And I mean that's maddening. You say, well, that's ridiculous. I know the price of a gallon of milk, and that's not that. And you hire a negotiator, a middleman to negotiate, right? But your price goes up. Right, and that's what's happening in healthcare. Wow. And our job, me and Dr. Lindo, my partner, is to try to help people make, again, their healthcare affordable and accessible.
Well, it's good. The whole system seems like it just got away from us, and we're not here to rip on the healthcare system. Right. But it's nice to see that we're trying to do things to fix it, right? And I think there's a lot of people that got to do their part in that, whether it's the patient, the doctor, the providers, and it's neat that you guys are trying it. And doing it well. Yes. I shouldn't say trying it. It makes it sound like it's an experiment. You're doing it, and you're doing it well.
Our clinic, we opened in October of 2018, and we started with 2 patients. My very first month, like I said, opening a business is very, very tough. You never know if you're going to be a success. But
they each got 4-hour appointments, huh?
That's right. But from there, I mean, it's a little bit of a learning curve, and got to refine how we approach people, how we have conversations. But then, just like any business, most of our business comes from families and friends referrals, right? Our patients, talking to their other family members saying like, hey, I see Dr. Jeff or Dr. Lindo, and I've had a great experience, and maybe they don't have a great experience with their doctor, and say I'm going to switch over to them, right? Or talking to friends, right? I think that's how most people find services nowadays. Also is right. I mean, there's a place for Yellow Pages and Google and things like that, but most people
word of mouth is still
king.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's something I'm sure that anybody listening to this, it may be out of the area. They need to look for physicians like yourself, right? Dr. Jeff, that would work with him and approach this type of healthcare.
Yeah. So I'm not reinventing the wheel on anything. When I started in 2018, there was a blueprint, right? There was a blueprint available to me through other doctors who have done this before me. And had done this successfully, right? Where they can practice the type of medicine they want to practice. Their patients can get the amazing care that they deserve and they expect, but also the physicians can make a living doing it, right? Yeah. So I had a blueprint. For patients out there or people out there who are listening to this podcast and you are saying, hey, this sounds like an interesting concept. Is there a direct primary care doctor near me? I would just simply just Google direct primary care and see what pops up in your area. There are, I think, direct primary care clinics in every state across the country right now.
Really?
Including some of the more rural states like the Dakotas too. Some of those states just got clinics. I know Michigan has a couple direct primary care clinics, myself in Ann Arbor. There's a direct primary care clinic here in Brighton where we're doing this podcast right now with Dr. Chad Savage. Out in Detroit there's one, Rochester Hills there's one, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Traverse City. So they're spread out.
And if somebody's listening to this and they are intrigued by it, you'd be happy to talk to them about it.
Exactly, yeah. And so, a lot of people, this is a new thing, sort of a foreign concept to people.
It is to me.
And so, a lot of doctors, including myself, will actually talk with the patients for 10 to 15 minutes, not treating them, of course. We can't treat you without an agreement to treat you. But we can talk to you a little about how our services work, how they're different than what we call the fee-for-service system, and what we can offer you in terms of your healthcare experience.
Where do you see this heading?
I see this becoming normalized, right? I see this direct primary care model not only for primary care, but I see specialists moving towards this as well. Specialists if you've ever seen a specialist such as a cardiologist, a dermatologist, a nephrologist, takes care of kidney-related concerns, I can go on and on. But these doctors, they're not just one-time or one-off, physicians like urgent cares are, right? These are people who, if you have a condition such as a heart condition that necessitates seeing a cardiac, a physician, oftentimes they're going to have repeat visits. And I see a lot of physicians, even specialists, moving towards this direct model as they say, hey, we're going to get rid of some of this extra middle layer that is health insurance, right? It's we can talk about this all day long, but it's a burden. It's a barrier to good, healthy care. It's driving doctors away from medicine and away from what we do best, which is treat the human spirit, really.
Really? Wow.
I would just warn you. I'd stay away from Les if he comes down because you can't fix his problems.
I'm all
But
for
you
a good
can humor
challenge.
me.
I'm all for a good challenge. We'll have a good laugh.
Well, good. Well, thank you for coming in. And it's Beyond Primary Care, Dr. Jeff.
That's right.
And if anybody wants to reach you, they certainly can. And we'll put the
You have a
information.
website?
Yeah, so our clinic's called Beyond Primary Care.
Yeah.
So we always direct people to beyondprimarycare.com.
Got it.
People can look through our website, our homepage. We have a pricing section. We talk about the services we offer. We always tell people we try to be as transparent as we can through the website. We have a lot of frequently asked questions on there. Again, this is sort of a new style of medicine. If we've had times in the past where people ask questions and we say, hey, that's a really good question, we'll put it on our website. And so again, if people are interested, they can always just call us at our clinic as well.
That's awesome.
Well, we normally end our show with asking our guests what kind of bourbon they like, what's their favorite flavor. But knowing a doctor and I wanted to get good grades, I'm going to forego
That's right.
the bourbon. I brought my banana here, so be healthy and be smart, right?
That's right. Thank you very much.
That's awesome. Thanks again, Dr. Jeff.
Thank you very much for enjoying.
All right, you got it.